Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today on the show, we have Anna Powell and Samira Hodges. They are both pediatricians, and they are known as the Pedi Pals. Anna and Samira, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
They both wrote the article, Why the Pandemic is the Perfect Opportunity to Introduce Meditation to Children. But before we get to that article, Anna, can you tell me a little bit about your story and a journey to where you got to today?
Sure. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having both of us on. We're really grateful for this opportunity and just thankful to your listeners for tuning in. Me and Sammy, as I like to call her, we go way back. We met during my intern year in residency, where she was my chief and upper level resident. And as you and many of your listeners probably can relate to those initial days and nights of residency, we had many eventful nights and we bonded immediately. We had that instant connection. We bonded over our heritage and our culture and medicine, and the rest is pretty much history, I think. We ended up in the same city. We work in Houston, Texas, and we've been working at the same practice and have been friends ever since. So basically over the many years as we've been in private practice, we have gotten to really discover our own personal and professional journeys side by side, and just have discovered a lot about each other. You know, a lot of physicians go through many ups and downs in their career, learning how to best be a resource for patients and families, and then also managing our own health and wellness. And that's kind of what brought us to the Pedi Pals. Often we focus so much of our time and energy on acute care management, you know, in medicine, and treating bronchiolitis and pneumonia, strep throat, and ear infections. But me and Sammy bonded on just wellness and having bonded over how we can help our parents raise happy and healthy kids, because there's so much information out there for parents right now. And we tried to reach out, do community outreach in our communities, tried to hold symposiums, and we got great feedback. And a lot of our parents mentioned that they wanted us to be on social media, and so that they can have access to us easier during this time where they're busy. You know, they're busy with their everyday lives, with their kids. And that's how we came to our new venture with the Pedi Pals.
Fantastic. And Samira, can you share a little bit about your story?
Yes, so very similar to Anna's. As she mentioned, I was her upper level. We did residency together. We both live in Texas. And from my point of view, she was one of those awesome, stellar interns that everyone wished they could have. So I got really lucky. And by some weird twist of fate, we ended up being with each other on many of those 30-hour shifts on the pediatric ward. And we both have the same sense of humor, so we would find the same things funny, and we found ourselves laughing a lot at night. And we went through training together, and then it was only natural to, you know, find ourselves practicing together as well. I actually originally grew up in Canada, but married an American after medical school, which is what brought me down here. And so, as Anna said, this journey for us has been really fun and exciting, especially practicing with someone that you are great friends with and that you trust. And that's kind of how we got here.
And one of the things that you had mentioned was that your parents wanted your practice to be more on social media. Now, before that request, what kind of social media presence did your practice have, and what kind of things did you do to kind of further that after that request?
Right. We didn't actually have any established social media presence. You know, we are working pediatricians in our community and just in the traditional sense. So we had our own practice, and just through talking with families, we found ourselves just not having enough time to really delve into some of the topics of health and wellness. We get 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe with each family in our office. We just had so much to talk about, so much to share, because wellness just goes beyond, the everyday illnesses that children experience. So with that, we decided we'll have a community symposium like we did, I think, the public library. We had symposiums in that type of setting. And that's where families mentioned that it was hard for them to come out routinely, but they really valued our time and are wanting to be a resource for them. And that's when they brought up, doing something like a live, like a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, or coming on social media so they can tune in from home and ask questions. And that's where we decided to venture that way.
And in terms of training, Anna, do you have a lot of social media experience as it relates to a professional medicine practice?
No, we actually don't. We're learning. And we decided we actually thought about this at the end of last year to go forward. And then, the universe had other plans with the pandemic. And so we've been learning, about social media since it's just such a big resource right now. And a lot of families have access to so much information on social media. And so we really wanted to make it our mission to provide good evidence-based information and be a resource where we can talk about the new research, talk about things that affect children and their families on this type of platform.
So let's transition into your Kevin MD article, Why the Pandemic is a Perfect Opportunity to Introduce Meditation to Children. Samira, for those who haven't read that article, can you just walk my audience through it and maybe share the story of why you and Anna decided to write it?
Sure. I should mention that Anna and I actually are adults who discovered meditation in our adult life. And so it was something that we both discovered independently, and then we ended up talking about it, and we're surprised that we were both starting to meditate, and then over time started to see the benefits in our own lives of meditation, and started to see why there's so much data that's starting to be presented, especially in medical literature, about the benefits of meditation. So we had a personal passion towards it as well. And so with regards to the article in particular, we want to empower physicians, specifically pediatricians if possible, to be sensitive to the unique situation that this pandemic presents to our patients and their families. The pandemic in general, it's a unique situation. Children have been forced indoors, forced to their screens, which we all know has a detrimental long-term effect on brain development. Less exercise, more eating, growth charts are accelerating at a monumental pace. Anecdotally, we as practicing pediatricians, we're diagnosing more autism, more anxiety, more depression, many more mental health disorders. So what do we do? What do we do as physicians, and what do parents do? The first key is that we have to be really compassionate and understand that we can't add more to anyone's plate right now. Everyone is overwhelmed. Everyone is dealing with the challenges of this pandemic in a myriad of ways. So we have to be very sensitive to not add more to their plate. But meditation is something that we can educate families about. This is a costless investment, and it's something that will only bring positive benefits and will kind of counterbalance the negative effects that we're noticing. And the sooner you start it, the better you can lay the foundation for children to have the tools to deal with these stressors. And if they can start now and early and learn how to focus and learn how to focus on one thing and learn how to manage stress, then that's something that they can carry with them the rest of their lives. And that's what the article is essentially about. It's, bringing evidence forth that we tend to have a little bit more evidence from a medical perspective and evidence-based medicine with adults. There's still a lot to be unraveled in terms of pediatrics and the benefits of meditation, but it is there. And we want to educate other physicians, other providers, other healthcare providers on this particular tool that can always be a great topic of discussion when you're handling these challenging situations that families have been faced with.
And Anna, I know meditation just in the abstract, but from a practical standpoint, so if you were to teach meditation to children, what exactly would that entail and what would that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And meditation, like many things, is not a one size fits all. You know, there's many ways to do it. There's many apps, resources online. There's different types of meditation that we can talk about, breathing meditation, many different types that parents can utilize. The biggest message that we want to relay to parents is to not be overwhelmed, not to make this as another task, another chore for them to do, but mostly to incorporate it in a routine that they're already making a routine. For example, a bedtime routine. You know, usually parents wind down with their children at night, bath time. Just in that time, there can be just a minute or two of self-reflection, of a pause that's very important for children. You know, meditation has shown benefits in allowing kids to be more focused, have a better attention span, coping with traumas that they might experience, have better attitudes, just in general for their social and emotional development. So just that 1 or 2 minute of pause, where they could maybe just focus on the breath, reflect on the day, you know, talk to their parents about things they were, you know, things they experienced that day, lessons learned. You know, it's just that time, just a few minutes of time and pause that I really think will be beneficial. And just to reinforce what Sammy mentioned, a lot of psychologists, a lot of teachers, and psychiatrists are incorporating meditation and mindfulness as a part of cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's something that they're doing at the psychologist's office, and being able to do that at home just for a few minutes can really show benefits for children.
And Anna, just to follow up on that, so let's say if parents wanted to take that next step after those initial instructions that you provided, where can they look?
There are several apps that can be found, you know, now that are available. Because people are discovering mindfulness and meditation more and more. There's some great children's apps, and we can share those through our website and our social media, of ones that we personally use. And those are great resources to put on some light music, just to count, you know, 1 to 10, take deep breaths, focus on the breath, and just start there. We know a lot of children, their attention span is limited, you know, so we can't expect them necessarily to meditate for 30 minutes or an hour. You know, just 1 to 2 minutes is more than enough for them to start. So I would say look into some of those resources online, and we'll continue to share them through our platform, and just take a few minutes to spend those moments of silence with your children.
Samira, so when you introduce meditation to your patients and your patients' parents, what kind of response do you generally get?
You know, it depends, but like with anything, but for the most part, people are quite open to it. I think a lot of parents, especially nowadays, are looking to explore options other than pharmaceuticals. So, you know, they're not always looking right away to start pharmaceutical therapy, and the mental health in general has gotten a lot more attention in the last decade, less stigmatized. So when it's brought up, you know, typically they're quite open to it, and especially if you present the data behind it and that it is a very beneficial, proven practice to have. So usually they're actually quite happy to learn that that's something that they can do. It's more the implementation that's a little bit of a challenge. But as Anna said, we try to really break it down into bite-sized functions, I guess. And then we just let them know that if you could just tack it on to something that you're already doing, and you're looking at starting with a 2-minute commitment, and then that 2-minute, you know, once they've mastered that 2 minutes, then you go to 3, and then you go to 4, and you just kind of keep building upon that, then it doesn't seem so intimidating. And most people would think that that small of a commitment might not be very beneficial, but when they have more discussions with us, they realize that it really does.
Samira, just to follow up, so if a clinicians wanted to incorporate more meditation and suggest in their practice, can you suggest any websites that they can learn more about this?
I would actually recommend, most clinicians have really good relationship with their local psychologists and psychiatrists. So I would actually recommend reaching out to them because as Anna said, they're a really good resource as well to use during this time. And I'm sure they're overburdened as well. So they would love to have some primary care, assistance. And so that would be a good first place, is to talk to the people that you tend to refer to and get some info and resource from them. The Calm app is a pretty popular one. And as with anything, it's always helpful if you practice what you preach, right? So if physicians are trying to preach about good health and having a good diet, it's always good if you're doing it yourself. If you're telling your patients to have a regular exercise routine, it's always good if you're already doing that yourself, because then you can come from a place of experience as well. Meditation's the same. If you can try to incorporate that in your own daily life, knowing the benefits that it causes, no matter what kind of person that you are, it will bring you something positive in your life, then it will be much easier to tell that to your parents and your patients as well. So for practicing physicians, I would just start with yourself and start with your local community.
We're talking to Anna Powell and Samira Hodges. They are pediatricians, and they co-wrote the Kevin MD article, Why the Pandemic is the Perfect Opportunity to Introduce Meditation to Children. Anna, we are speaking in the end of October, and we are on the cusp of a third wave of the pandemic. Now, it's a very stressful time, obviously. What kind of advice can you give to parents going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think all of us, parents and children, have been struggling during this pandemic. There's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of unknown with the virus. Physicians, clinicians, we're all at a loss. And, I think the biggest advice that I would provide to families is, to stay on top of the medical information, safety first, definitely make sure that they are that resource for their children to be able to be safe first. And then to really focus on spending that quality time with them. We can really utilize this time that we have to really reflect, introspect about how we live our lives, wellness, our nutrition, improve on sleep. All these are cornerstones of wellness. And the one thing that I've been stressing to families is that if you really focus, like Samira said, if you focus on your health and wellness, it will trickle down to your children. If you make that a priority by putting the screens away, by turning the TVs off, by using that time to eat together, to draw together, to play games together, and really spend that time with your children, there will be a lot of less anxiety and just improved outlook. And the way we live our lives really does trickle down to our children. And so I would say the biggest thing would be to really spend time with each other during this time.
And Samira, I'm going to ask you a similar question, except I'm going to have you address it towards your fellow pediatrician colleagues. What kind of advice do you have for them as we enter the third wave?
Give yourself a pat on the back. You're wonderful. You've done it. This was a really scary and kind of uncertain thing that was heading our way, like a big tidal wave that we knew was going to come towards us at some point. And probably one of the most stressful things any of us have ever been through. So, as a healthcare provider, as a physician, as a pediatrician, we're front lines. We knew that the kids were going to get COVID, despite, the reports that it might have been a lesser case. Thank goodness for that. But we knew that they were going to get exposed and they were going to have it. And we were going to have to be there and treat them and diagnose them, and then also provide support for their parents and rapidly educate yourself during this time. So my advice to them would be, you did it, you're doing it, and great job. And, we're grateful to our medical community, and to give yourself some credit during this time, because it's not been easy. So my message would be one of complete and support.
So I'm going to end off by asking you, both of you, the same question. Anna, what is your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
My take-home message to the audience is mostly to really focus on wellness as a whole. I think in medicine, us as clinicians, we often get very pigeonholed, and we get sometimes have a hard time seeing the forest for the trees because we are treating medical illnesses, day to day. And like Sammy said, we're front lines. I think it's important to focus on everything as a whole, your mind, body, and environment. And the meditation article was just another outlook on things we can do on a day-to-day to really make sure we're taking care of ourselves and our mental health and our physical health as well. And so I think the take home is you're doing a great job, keep doing what you're doing, and really try to utilize this time to focus on yourself and to provide the most resources for families out there.
And Samira, what is your take home message?
Similar to Anna's, obviously one of support and gratitude. Also, going through your career, especially for the younger physicians right now, I would like for them to know that you're going to evolve a lot. How you come out fresh out of residency is very different than how you feel several years down the line and how you feel at the end of your career. And, we have evolved also, Anna and myself, and have learned how important self-care is and how important it is to be able to take care of ourselves so we can take care of our patients. So that would be my take home message. And it all really comes back down to the article. It's not only for parents, but for anybody that at this time, this critical time that we've been faced with such a huge challenge, what do we do? And this is what we want to share with your audience, that we have found this really helpful for ourselves and in our day-to-day practice. And we would like to share that with your audience and anyone who's willing to listen, that it really is a great thing to try to incorporate in your life because you will reap all the benefits.
And together, you're both known as the PD Pals. Samira, how can people reach you?
You can find us on social media. As Anna said, it wasn't our preferred original platform, but we finally joined 2020. So we can be found on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and our tag is at the PD Pals. We also have a website, thepdpals.com. You can message us through there. Just Google us and you'll find us.
And Samira, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.